Hello and welcome to today's Dav Chat with me, Davina. I am chatting about fascism, American politics, the use of propaganda to muddy the waters and make people confused about what is true, what is real, to disparage the current economy just because President Biden's in charge, and to cast a rosy glow over the years in which Trump was in office, which were some of the most turbulent, violent, pandemically mismanaged, economy crashing years that the country has seen over the last few decades. So there is a fairly consistent pattern of economies crashing under Republican presidents. And there's just some bookmarks on Twitter that I'd like to go through today to highlight some facts. If people want to chime in with comments, I'm prepared to debate to a small extent, just because I don't like to platform people who are really entrenched in a propaganda mindset. But to people who are open to a wedge of sunlight, or can consider the possibility that Fox News might have been deceptive, people who can pay attention to the fact that Fox was ordered to pay a $700 million defamation lawsuit to Dominion, the company Dominion, which runs election machines, electronic voting machines, and was part of the fabricated narrative that Trump had the election stolen from him. A narrative that he set up significantly prior to the election by reiterating over and over again that he would only lose if the election was stolen from him. And I've argued the point many times that I think he, in many ways, purposefully undermined the public health message in order to maximize the contrarian energy of his base, to make people feel that the medical establishment, that Dems, who typically side with the medical establishment and science and established truth, were in fact the bad guys and were attempting to inconvenience people for the fun of it, for the hell of it, just to flex their oppression muscles. So I think that was actually Donald Trump flexing his disinformation muscles in order to manufacture rage, manufacture outrage. So what's the first thing I've got up on screen today? It's a breaking news story from CNN about OAN executives. That's one American news network, I think. Anyway, OAN, it's a very pro-Trump propaganda style news channel. And they, the OAN president, Charles Herring, sent Sidney Powell in January 8th, 2021, he sent Sidney Powell a spreadsheet that he said contained Smartmatic employee passwords. So Smartmatic being the other electronic voting machine company other than Dominion, who were targeted by Sidney Powell and other Trump lawyers like Rudy Giuliani as being part of this vast fabricated conspiracy plan to steal things from Donald Trump, to steal his second term from him. And so, of course, they are suing for defamation, for lost revenue, for lost reputation. And so part of the evidence that they have apparently uncovered through the legal process of discovery is this potentially explosive email with a spreadsheet claiming to contain passwords of employees from the voting technology company, according to court filings. So CNN pieced together who was involved in the email exchanges by examining court records from 3 separate cases. So that's some good detective work on the part of CNN. There's definitely been an erosion of trust from people in a lot of news networks, whether it's because people get bored of a horse race scenario being presented to them where Trump has his crimes and his malfeasance glossed over for the purpose of presenting him as a valid candidate to oppose Joe Biden, President Biden. People can get worn down by that. People can get worn down by just feeling numb and detached from reality as it's described by a news organization. Also, look, attention spans are fairly fractured, aren't they? With the advent of social media, you can get your news told to you by someone who feels more interpersonally relatable, who speaks direct to camera in a more pared down, authentic feeling, secret telling type of scenario. Guess what, TikTok? This is what it's all about. And I'm broadcasting to avail myself of that dynamic as well, because I do want to help be part of the pushback against the tactics of fascism, which are to take advantage of both sidism, where news organizations are targeted by a fascist leader who describes them as being fake news purveyors and is so harshly critical of them that they become more wary of criticizing the fascist leader. They become more wary of saying, of condemning, of being honest with how condemn-worthy the actions are of the central player in question. In this case, in our era, it's Trump. In previous eras, it's been other fascists, Hitler and Mussolini, people who seek to untether themselves from truth and untether the minds of their followers from verifiable facts by telling them over and over again, using that power of repetition, which helps create beliefs in human beings. If they're exposed to something being repeated to them from multiple sources and just multiple times, they can start to accept something as truth. Mussolini, Hitler, Trump have all used that technique of decrying the media as being fake news, purveyors of lies, in order to make themselves immune from criticism. So any reports of their criminality become swept up in the minds of their followers with that negative brand, fake news. And I read today the story of a brave woman, the woman who taped Donald Trump when he made a very now famous call to Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, when he was attempting to overturn Biden's electoral victory by pressuring individual Republican officials in different states to get them to reverse the tallies. So the call to Brad Raffensperger was made with Trump and Mark Meadows, and then Brad Raffensperger's chief of staff, Amiz Fuchs, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but it's spelled Fuchs. Maybe if the story gets picked up by more media, I'll hear someone else say it out loud and I can run with that. But she had the cojones to tape Donald Trump as he made that now infamous hour-long call in which he attempted to cajole, threaten, blackmail, say, oh, it's criminal if you don't do something about the fact that the election was stolen from me. You know, there's clearly fraudulent behavior, fraudulent activity. I've heard of it, so you have to do something about it. Otherwise, you'll have criminal exposure. Look, man, I just need 11,780 more votes. Just give me 11,000 votes. Trump negotiating down from 11,780 to 11,000. So that call really would have helped to break through the fog in some people's mind that Donald Trump couldn't possibly be guilty of any criminal behavior, because that was released with a lot of recognizable voices on it. That call was released to Washington Post and then shared with the world. You can hear Trump and you can hear his mob-like techniques of badgering someone to commit election fraud on Trump's behalf. So it makes really clear that the person trying to overthrow American democracy, the person trying to steal an election was Donald Trump. There's no tape of Joe Biden pressuring people to steal an election for him. There's no tape of Biden supporters. There was an alleged reveal of two innocent Georgia poll workers who were working during a pandemic to help count the votes and who brought up more votes in the type of bins that votes were stored in to begin counting more. And the mother passed the daughter a ginger mint. And that footage of that innocent transaction was used to by Rudy Giuliani to describe it as one of the women passing a clear USB stick to the other, and that this was proof. It's proof to people who have a very low bar for proof. It was proof to people who wanted to believe the worst of two Black women and wanted to believe that their worldview is so widely shared by everybody that definitely it's true that Donald Trump definitely had to have the election stolen, and there must be some proof of it. So that was offered as proof. It's clearly unassailable and accurate. So those women have since won very large defamation judgments against Rudy Giuliani for lying about them, for using their lives, plunging their lives into chaos in order to further that false story that Trump was the victim, when in fact they were the ones victimizing other people, and they victimized those poll workers, Ruby Freeman and her daughter Shaye Moss, making them the target of death threats, having to leave their homes, threatening members of their family from Trump supporters. So let's see, is there anything else that we want to cover today? So that was the Smartmatic ongoing legislation. What else have we got in my saved bookmarks? Oh, this is a good piece because it's journalism, somebody not afraid to call out a Republican politician for being deceptive and forgetting how they voted. This is a Republican called Rep. Salazar, taking credit for projects brought to Florida, her district in Florida, from legislation that was passed that she herself voted against. The CHIPS and Science Act and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. So this is laws supported by President Biden, signed by President Biden, and passed in bipartisan fashion by Democrats with some support from some Republicans, and then others who step back and go, it's socialism, doing things for the good of the country or the good of districts. It's socialism. But you can see the contrast because you're about to hear Rep. Salazar say, isn't it great that I brought this money to the district? And it's like, no, thanks to the journalist who called her out and said, you actually voted against these projects. They've succeeded. The bills have passed in spite of you. So why the amnesia as to how you voted? Because she won't admit that she voted against these bills. She says merely that she cannot remember.
Last month, you were at FIU and you presented a check for $650,000 to help small businesses at FIU. But you voted against the bill that gave the money that you then signed a check for and handed and had a photo op, the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2023, right? You voted against that bill.
I right now, you have to give me more details, but I do know that every time I have an opportunity to bring money to my constituents, I do so. I just did $400,000. But look,
but you voted against the CHIPS and Science Act, right?
Listen, right now I need to ask my staff. But what do we look at the $40 million that I have brought to this community? Aren't you proud of me? Aren't you proud of the $40 million that I brought? Aren't you proud that I wrote the Dignity Act? Haven't I? Let's talk about the Americas Act.
Wait a second. Let me 1 second.
Tell me.
The money that you talk about, the $40 million that you bring back to the district, sometimes that money comes from bills that you voted against. You voted against the CHIPS Act, and yet you praise the fact that the South Florida Climate Resilience Tech Hub is going to be started in Miami, right?
Ooh,
you voted against the infrastructure bill, and you talk about all the money that comes back to the airport. So at the same time that you're taking credit for the money that you bring back to the district, in Washington, you're voting against these projects on party line votes.
Listen, that was, I think, last cycle. I cannot really remember right now, but let's look at the Americas Act, which is what I'm going to, which is
so
what I would like.
You don't want to explain why you vote
really
against
cannot.
things.
I mean, right now, and I'm not trying to be a politician, there's so many bills that I've introduced that I know that many
these are
of
bills
them
that you voted against.
That I understand. But it's okay. Sometimes I vote and sometimes I don't. But let's look at the positive. Let's look at the $40 million that I brought, and let's look at the
$40 million is from these bills you voted against.
Last month, you were at FIU and you presented a check for $650,000 to help small.
Oh, I think we got to the end of that. So the interesting thing about that is that she probably decried those bills as socialism, because it's easy to appeal to short-sighted people if you want to tell them, oh, money for everyone, that's extravagant, that's unnecessary. And then when the consequences come to her district and they're the beneficiary of investments, she's like, hooray, this is to be celebrated, money for our district. Okay, money for us, huzzah. Money for everyone, socialism. It's just like from Cuba, if you left Cuba because of the detriments of communism in that country. So she's trying to help blind people to the fact that, yes, you can resist the extremes of fascism and communism without sabotaging works for the public good, without sabotaging bills and legislation that is to bring innovation, to bring infrastructure, to bring support that helps grow America to individual communities. So that's all from me today. Thanks for listening to Dav Chat, and same time tomorrow. Let's try that. Bye. Oh, I haven't ended it.